Thank you all for being here on this last Sunday morning of the last month of the year 2021, and what a heck of a year it has been. Let's hope 2022 is better. Anyway, we're delighted that you are here and that you've chosen to spend the morning with us, spend the morning with us at the Unitarian Universalist Fellowship of San Miguel de Allende. That's always a mouthful to say. Wherever you may be joining us from. I understand we have some Zoom problems, but I believe that you can hear us on Zoom. So we're glad that you are there. If you spent yesterday celebrating Christmas with family or friends or both, we're particularly pleased that you decided to join us this morning. I am a member, my name is Linda Sorin, and it's a great pleasure to be your service leader this morning. I am a member of the Sunday Service and Finance Committees and of Mis Hermanas, a women's group of the UUFSMA, easier to say. UUFSMA is a very welcoming community. We have members and visitors from the US, Canada, Mexico, and other countries as well. We're comprised of people from many different religious traditions, or none at all. We welcome people from various cultural backgrounds, gender identities, sexual orientation. Everybody is welcome here. We encourage you to bring your questioning mind and your expansive heart to share in fellowship, reflection, and great music. Today's service was created by the Peace Team, whose members are Cliff DuRand, Merrily Beyreuther from Chicago, Trish Snyder, and myself. It's part of the new experiment that we're doing, creating teams that are putting together the Sunday services. So it's a lot of work and it's a lot of fun, and we have a great appreciation now for what Kathy and Paula have been doing all this time. And now some announcements. When the service is over, please exit quickly and quietly so that the Zoom service can continue without background noise. We have a special treat for those of you here in person today. There will be cookies for you to enjoy outside. Cookies, yes, real cookies, while you visit with your friends, old and new. Those on Zoom, feel free to stay and socialize when the service is finished. An announcement from the Hotel Aldea. If you have parked in the hotel parking, and to go someplace after for lunch or for errands, they would appreciate being informed so that they know that your car is here. And finally, please check your order of service at uufsma.org to see all of the activities and events sponsored by the fellowship. Now John Simsarian is going to make a special announcement from the Task Force on Ministry. John, thank you.
Good morning. My name is John Simsarian, and I am a member of the Task Force on the Future of Ministry for this fellowship. And I'm here this morning to deliver what I consider good news. The task force has been meeting weekly since the beginning of November, and our first goal, which was to develop and distribute a survey to all members, asking the question, and I wish Margot were here to say it, what you all want. The survey has gone out, and we had a very strong response, with 172 people completing the survey. Thank you for your participation. I'm going to do just a little brief statement about some of the results. A majority, 65%, said that professional ministry was important for the fellowship. and members identified areas where the involvement of a minister was most important. That was a significant response. There was also a very strong display of how important it is for members of the fellowship to be actively involved with the fellowship. For example, 88% of the responders said that members should be involved in nurturing a beloved fellowship community. 85% said that members should be involved in helping one another, and so forth. While professional ministry is clearly important to the fellowship, members want to continue to have a strong lay-led fellowship with an active membership. Both are compatible. The respondents to the survey indicate that 78% want to give a significant portion of budget to Mexican nonprofit organizations. And 60% indicated that they would not be in favor of changing our percentage of funding to nonprofit organizations. So, what you all said is that we want to continue to have professional ministry, continue to have strong member participation, continue to nurture and sustain the fellowship, and continue to help fund our Mexican partner organizations. This is a strong and positive statement about who we are as a fellowship. Of course, there are a lot of other details in the survey that the task force will review and consider as we develop proposals. Due to COVID, members of this fellowship, as with so many other organizations, have gone through a period of confinement and isolation. This can lead to impatience. We may have differing opinions and backgrounds, but we share key values and will move forward together. Our fellowship is fortunate in so many ways, and I developed a whole list of examples of how fortunate we are, but I'll spare you of that at this time. Just to say that we have a lot to be proud of and that we have a strong future ahead. The task force will develop a report to the board by January 1. The board of directors will prepare a proposal based on the task force report and distribute it to the members. The annual meeting, and this is key, the annual meeting is on March 27. Everyone note that in your calendars, please. We will consider and vote on the proposals at the annual meeting. The meeting of the membership is the governing body for our fellowship, so it's a very important meeting. Remember, we honor the democratic process, and it will be important for strong attendance and participation at this annual meeting. So, with that, we will continue forward together, and I thank you, and I wish you all a happy new year. Now, I want to introduce Andrea Kaufman, who will provide a COVID update.
My name is Andrea Kaufman. I'm with the COVID Task Force and have the awesome opportunity to wish you a happy holidays and talk to you about COVID again. I want to offer my congratulations to those of you who got your booster shots this week. If you missed that opportunity, there's going to be another tomorrow, Monday. So please go and get a booster. Boosters offer you the best opportunity to protect yourself, to maximize your own ability to protect yourself. So please go and get a booster shot if you haven't. What else can you do? Well, you can stock up on basics like Tylenol and fluids things that you would need in case you catch a cold or the flu or COVID. Unfortunately, the symptoms of these viruses are so similar, it may be very difficult to tell what you have caught, but you will need to stay at home and take care of yourself and avoid other people until you're certain that you're well. This is also an opportunity to use your very best fitting masks when you go anywhere. Not saving them for anything. If you have been traveling, we're also advising that you take 2 or 3 days in order to see if you develop any symptoms. And then you can happily use your best mask and enjoy San Miguel. Some of us will inevitably get a cold or the flu or COVID. So this winter, we can only do our best not to share it with others, not to be breathing viruses with each other. I wish you health and a very happy New Year and holiday season.
Today we will visit some of the great world religions, drinking from their visions of peace: Judaism, Buddhism, and Islam. But I'll begin with Kwanzaa, since this is the first day of Kwanzaa. Kwanzaa is a 7-day African-American celebration of the values that bind that community together into a brotherhood. Among the 7 principles Kwanzaa celebrates are umoja, meaning unity, and kumba, leave our community more beautiful and beneficial than we inherited it. These teach the values of a peaceful community sharing a life together. Well, so too does Nelson Mandela, who has said, quote, "Peace is not just the absence of conflict. Peace is the creation of environment where all of race, color, creed, religion, gender, class, caste, or any other social markers of difference. Religion, ethnicity, language, social and cultural practices are elements which enrich human civilization, adding to the wealth of our diversity. Why should they be allowed to become a cause of division and violence? We demean our common humanity by allowing that to happen." Now, Linda and I will light the chalice.
As you know, lighting the chalice is an important part of the Unitarian Universalist service. It takes us from the everyday into the sacred, if you will. And the reading for the chalice lighting today is, "May the light we now kindle inspire us to use our powers to heal and not to harm, to help and not to hinder, to bless and not to curse, to serve the spirit of peace." And now, please join Hillary and me in reciting our covenant, first in English and then in Spanish. We respect the interdependent web of life and work for a just and peaceful world. We encourage the search for truth and meaning, strive for compassion in our relationships, and seek values that will benefit our lives and the lives of others. This is our covenant.
Respetamos todos los estilos de vida dentro de su red interdependiente y trabajamos por un mundo justo y pacífico. Alentamos la búsqueda de la verdad y la comprensión total. Nos esforzamos por mantener compasión en nuestras relaciones y buscamos valores que beneficien nuestras vidas y las vidas de los demás. Este es nuestro convenio.
Good morning. My name is Mark Johaningsmeir, and I'm honored to be a part of this fellowship's celebration today. Each week we acknowledge that you and I are recipients of immense gifts, and that we have also suffered untold losses, and we find ourselves in the midst of courageous work, fighting heartbreaking struggles. We laugh and we weep, and in these moments together we remind ourselves that we are not alone. Whatever verb we use for this, you may call it focused thought, meditation, prayer, profound hopes, wishes, gratitude. Whatever we call it, we reveal what is happening deep inside us. Each week you may email any of your joys or concerns. Email them to Tom Rossiello, our minister, for inclusion in this sharing each week. In this moment, those of you who are with us by Zoom, you may share, you may type in any joys or concerns in the chat box. This first candle represents healing prayers and thoughts for Michael Murphy. Michael is scheduled for cardio bypass surgery on the 29th. He's in Charleston, South Carolina. A second candle we light is in celebration of John and Carolyn Simsarian. I share their words. They write, "We have a joy. On December 28, 1966, yes? Yes. We were married in Green Tree, Pennsylvania, and this year celebrate 55 years of marriage, life together. Mazel tov. And they say, we love our life in San Miguel, especially being a part of the UU Fellowship here, and we wish you all a joyous holiday season. This candle acknowledges Archbishop Desmond Tutu, who died earlier today. He preached and worked for peace. He engaged in the struggles against South Africa's system of apartheid. He was chosen by Nelson Mandela to head the Truth and Reconciliation Commission, which tried to heal some of the wounds that nation's violent past had created and that endured. He was given many awards in his life for his work, including the Nobel Peace Prize. He was 90 years old. A candle now for those grieving the absence of loved ones in the midst of holiday happiness and exuberance. A candle for those suffering with COVID, the sickness, the absence of loved ones, the fears that may arrive in any of our lives. A candle for all of us looking back on a year of outrageous violence, political mendacity, and disease, which was also a year that revealed heroism, acts of kindness, and generosity, and the push to find healing for others. May we look with discernment on where we have been and where we want our lives to go in the days ahead. And lastly, a candle for those joys and concerns, hopes and losses that reside deep inside each of us. Many have not been named. Many have not words that adequately convey what is held deep in the heart and mind of people. A moment of silence to honor these things in our lives and in each other. Amen. And now, a musical meditation.
Good morning. Among our concerns this morning are those for thousands of migrant Haitians from the poorest and one of the most politically unstable countries in the Western Hemisphere. It is the high holy season, and the devout are so desperate that they have uprooted themselves, traveled the dangerous journey to a foreign land, and now are in peril of freezing and starving. They've just crossed the Mexican border in search of humanitarian aid. Their needs have inundated both San Miguel's immigration office and ABA in Celaya. The immigration office director reached out to our friends at Caminamos Juntos and others to assist with life-saving measures. And a small group of volunteers formed to help our Haitian brothers and sisters, including their children and infants. Temporary shelter has been provided by El Sindicato. A few Creole and French interpreters have helped, but it is a group of Haitians has been fortunate to leave for Monterrey. Caminamos Juntos is seeking donations for food for those they anticipate are on their way here. When Haitians move, Caminamos Juntos sends whatever pertinent funds to the Latin American Relief Fund to provide for the Haitians in their next respite location. Your Blue Plate special donations here today will go to Caminamos Juntos to help provide food to save Haitian lives and provide a glimmer of hope for them. Please help us turn this grave concern into a true joy. To inspire you to do so, Paula will now play Peace on Earth. Thank you in advance for your generosity, and may your holidays be peaceful safe, warm, and happy.
The Christmas spirit has already partly filled our symbolic chalice of peace with wine. That message is expressed in the great world religions. Joan Wolfe is a Buddhist member of our fellowship. She found a rich spiritual path in the ancient wisdom of India and became a yoga and meditation teacher, although she was raised in an Irish Catholic family. Now she facilitates the weekly UUFSMA Sangha of the Heart on Zoom. Holly Rizvi will speak about the Islam perspective on peace. While he was born in Pakistan, he grew up in the US. Holly is a software developer who lives in San Miguel with his family. He is passionate about many religions. And our third speaker, Dan Neuspiel, is familiar to us all as president of our fellowship. He is a retired pediatrician living in San Miguel de Allende, who was raised in a Jewish family. We start with the ancient religion of Judaism and pour its symbolic wine for peace. As we hear from our virtuoso impersonator-in-chief, Kathy Canapin.
If I had known I was impersonating so much today, I would have dressed. Sorry. This is making me nervous. I'm taking it off. But I do have Dan's script here, and this is what he would have said about Judaism and peace. Judaism and peace have an ambivalent relationship. While there's a strong commitment to peace in Jewish scripture, reality often tells a different story. I'll comment on this disparity and present a view that I believe is more consistent with Unitarian Universalism. In my Jewish upbringing, I learned that peace and justice are core values. Jews greet each other by saying shalom, Hebrew for peace. Shalom also conveys the idea of contentment, well-being, and prosperity. Peace between a person and God, as well as among groups and individuals, are considered a high value. And tikkun olam, healing a broken world, is central. Most Jews look forward to a time of peace and harmony between all people. This popular passage from the book of Isaiah suggests that as the time of the Messiah approaches, violent conflicts must come to an end. It shall come to pass in the latter days, people shall beat their swords into plowshares and their spears into pruning hooks. Nations shall not lift up sword against nation, neither shall they learn war anymore. Thus, in Judaism, peace is not just the absence of war, it's an ideal state of affairs. In this sense, peace is something that will not be fully achieved until the Messianic era, one of global peace and harmony, free of strife and hardship. The theme of the Messiah ushering in an era of peace is encapsulated in another famous passage from Isaiah. The wolf will lie with the lamb, the leopard will lie down with the goat, the calf and the lion and the yearling together, and a little child will lead them. The cow will feed with the bear, their young will lie down together, and the lion will eat straw like an ox. The infant will play near the hole of the cobra, and the young child put his hand into the viper's nest. They will neither harm nor destroy on all my holy mountain, for the earth will be full of the knowledge of the Lord as the waters cover the sea. The Talmud explains, the entire Torah is for the sake of the ways of shalom. The medieval Jewish philosopher Maimonides comments, great is peace, as the whole Torah was given in order to promote peace in the world. As it is stated, her ways are pleasant ways, and all her paths are peace. Now, how does this jibe with the current reality? Let me start with my own Jewish family. My father and uncle escaped Czechoslovakia the day before Hitler invaded. Their parents and sister were soon deported and murdered at Auschwitz. My mother was born in the US to immigrant parents who had escaped violent anti-Semitism in Tsarist Russia. My parents met in Palestine in the late 1940s, my mother a volunteer and my father a refugee. Along with millions of Jews around the world, my parents were avid supporters of Zionism, the belief in the necessity of a Jewish homeland, and they witnessed the establishment of the State of Israel in 1948 and the war that followed. They married in 1950. I was born there a few years later. They viewed Israel as an island of safety for a people who were oppressed and almost annihilated. But there was a problem. Palestine was not an empty land. The Israeli War of Independence of 1948, which is called the Nakba in Arabic, meaning catastrophe, resulted in the violent displacement of over 700,000 Palestinians. Violence between Israelis and Palestinians, which continues to this day, is often falsely presented as a conflict between two equal sides with claims to one piece of land. But in reality, it's a conflict over territory between a nation state with one of the world's most powerful and well-funded militaries and an indigenous population of Palestinians that has been occupied, displaced, and exiled for decades. Now, to be clear, I don't believe the government of Israel or the philosophy of Zionism represent the views of all Jews. As a youth, I followed my parents' commitment to Israel, but after the 1967 war, I broke with their Zionist beliefs. Since then, the Israeli government has continued to oppress both its Arab citizens as well as Palestinians in the West Bank and Gaza, fed by US dollars and military equipment. Israel is now armed with nuclear weapons. All this conflicts with the goals of peace in the scriptures. So what would a UU response be? One organization that expresses positions consistent with UU principles is called Jewish Voice for Peace. This group opposes anti-Jewish, anti-Muslim, and anti-Arab bigotry and oppression. They seek an end to the Israeli occupation of the West Bank, Gaza, and East Jerusalem, security and self-determination for Israelis and Palestinians, a just solution for Palestinian refugees based on principles established under international law, an end to violence against civilians, and peace and justice for all peoples of the Middle East. They are inspired by Jewish traditions to work for justice and see such work as part of our collective liberation. They believe that being Jewish is not synonymous with Zionism or support for Israel. Their work is part of a broader struggle and commitment to end racism, anti-Jewish, anti-Muslim, and anti-Arab bigotry, and all forms of oppression. I believe that these positions are consistent with our first, second, and sixth principles: the inherent worth and dignity of every person, justice, equity, and compassion in human relations, and the goal of world community with peace, liberty, and justice for all. Shalom.
I'm not as multi-talented as Kathy, and I am not going to be able to do a Joan Wolfe impersonation because Joan's recording is not here and I don't have her script, and she is now in Taos, New Mexico. Yeah, but she was going to share her understanding of Buddhist wisdom as we pour the symbolic wine for peace. And I know that she was going to end with a 2-minute meditation. So that's something we all can do. Take 2 minutes, just close our eyes, meditate on peace, and I will tell you when the 2 minutes are up. Thank you, Paula. Well, we're very fortunate to have in person, live and in person, Ali Rizvi. Ali is going to complete our journey through our third religion, Islam, as Cliff pours its symbolic wine for peace. Ali, thank you.
This mask is a rough one. It's a pleasure to be here in front of you all. So I don't know if I'm going to be as eloquent as Dan was, but I'll do my best. I think he did a great job in terms of identifying some of the core challenges that we have, especially given in the Semitic regions of the world. But I'm going to talk about Islam, and to start off, I'm going to do a greeting. In the Muslim tradition, as well as in the Arabic language, from which a lot of the Islamic beliefs come from. Islam was born just like Judaism and Christianity in the Semitic world. And this religion in the Semitic world was the canvas upon which all of our religions that we are trying to share here outside of Buddhism were born from. So the greeting is Salaam Alaikum, very similar to Shalom, as you could see. Salaam Alaikum means, and you would say, Wa alaikum as-salam, right? Wa alaikum as-salam. And this is a greeting that every Muslim would use with another Muslim, whether they were a stranger on the street or their beloved. And it literally means peace be upon you. So every Muslim greets another to say, and their greeting starts with peace. And in fact, the word Islam itself is rooted in the Arabic word silm, which means peace. But peace is an interesting concept in Islam. It is, again, grounded in the Semitic world. Peace is not necessarily an absence of conflict, because there's an understanding that there is conflict, there's friction in the world. And sometimes through conflict and friction, beautiful things can be born. However, within the context of conflict, in Islam, peace is about harmony. It's about a bringing together of people in a harmonious, non-discordant way, where people can live amongst each other in a way that fosters peace. But knowing that people will have different opinions, knowing that people will have a different perspective, knowing that people may have actually different religions within that space. So this brings me to another very important point that I wanted to bring up today, because it's something that has been proselytized generally through media, and I want to cover it. Because in the polarity of peace, the polar position of peace is war. And Dan really brought up some excellent points about Dan, right? Am I right, Dan? I'll let you. Brought up some really specific points, and I'm not going to get too specific here, but I think mine is a really great segue from what he spoke about, because both of these religions that coexist within Israel and within that Semitic world are about peace. And so I'm going to cover jihad. And this is this really potent word. And in the European context, whether through media, whether through historical documentation, the Islamic world has been sort of connected with jihadic war. However, in the true Islam, in the Quran, in the Hadith, which is the writings of the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, jihad, there's two forms of jihad. The first form of jihad, the greater jihad that's called, is actually all about spiritual attainment. It's about faith. It's about actual dealing with your own challenges, with your struggle. So the core word of jihad is actually struggle, and has very little to do with war. It's about struggle, and we all are going through struggles. I mean, during COVID, it's a year and a half of tremendous struggle. So for the Muslim, the COVID experience is the jihad, really the ultimate jihad of our time. And it's struggle to stay connected with the people that you love, to have faith. And in fact, the core meaning of jihad is actually about social justice, which is in our times probably one of the most important cultural motions, social justice, because there is really a big lack of it. And so that greater jihad in Islam is about social justice, about justice for all. Yeah. But there is a lesser jihad, the secondary jihad, which is associated, and which really Dan spoke very eloquently about, which is about the fight against oppression. And sometimes you do have to take up arms against oppression. If your loved ones are suffering, if your people are suffering, if your religion is under attack, and this attack may be through media or it may be physical. If you are under attack through the second form of jihad, you have an obligation to protect yourself. And so maybe that's what we feel around the world, right? However, nowhere in this concept of jihad is there room for aggression, right? Is that no war of aggression. Nowhere in Islam is there a war of aggression or a war for gain, whether that's personal gain, national gain. There is no concept of that in Islam. Because in Islam, another concept really important is the concept of multiplicity. There is no belief in forced conversion in Islam. In fact, Islam has no concept of mission either. And its cardinal principle, Islam is a culture of peace through acceptance of religious faith as completely an option. Absolutely optional in Islam. There is no concept of conversion by force or conversion by propaganda even, right? Because propaganda can be a forceful way of converting. And so no compulsion. In fact, it is written in the Quran, no Muslim can compel another person to become Muslim. In fact, that is a form of sin, looked very poorly upon. That brings me to a story that I wanted to tell. This is the story of Saladin. People familiar who Saladin was? So Saladin was the general or sultan of Egypt, and him and Richard Lionheart had a very interesting relationship. This was the Second Crusade, the end of the Second Crusade. And this is interesting, right? I'm bringing up a point of conflict, which again, as I go back to my first point, the absence of conflict is not the way Islam, any Semitic peoples look at peace. So the story of Saladin is that, he had conquered Jerusalem. Plain and simple, 1187 AD, at the end of the Second Crusade, was a war between Saladin and Richard, who was the king of England. And much of that war was a lot of bloodshed. However, when Saladin had amassed the greatest army, Muslim army anyway, in the history of Islam, and marched on Jerusalem, at some point, knowing his adversary, Richard, and having this tremendous respect for each other, they had a very interesting relationship. He took the city by diplomacy instead. And he looked at that as a function of his highest attainment, that greater jihad that I spoke of, connecting back. And when you look at the readings of Saladin in his personal journals, he had seen that his only way, if he was to take a city so sacred, so beloved as Jerusalem, and in the concepts of multiplicity and acceptance of the Christian, the Jew, he could not take that city in any good conscience through killing everybody there. And so, they took it through diplomacy. And when he entered the city as a conqueror, he proclaimed in that very moment that no Muslim soldier would destroy a church or a synagogue. In fact, in his writings, in his proclamations, in his agreement, he said all religions must be working together. And this is that concept of multiplicity in Islam, that there is no place. You and your religion have just as much place as me and my religion, and I have no purpose, no good purpose in trying to get you to become a Muslim. And in that cardinal sense of no compulsion is the way Islam reflects peace in the world. So, in closing, at its heart, Islam is about peace. But as we know in the world that we live in, religion sometimes is used in ways that are not necessarily at its core principle. However, as communities, as individuals here, we are here in peace, and I'm here in peace, and we can operate together in harmony, but have some great conversations that may have some conflict in it. So, thank you. Hand it over to Cliff.
Thank you, Ollie. I have some reflections on war and peace. You know, we've heard inspiring words from three great religions, traditions. Throughout history, religion has promoted peace on all levels, within the individual, between persons, and between peoples. In this, religion reinforces what is a natural human impulse. Nevertheless, we would be remiss if we were to ignore the sad reality that sometimes religion has been used to promote violent conflict. This has been the case with every religion. We all know of the Christian crusades against Muslim peoples in the Middle East and the 17th century religious wars that racked Europe for 30 years, taking over 8 million lives. Nor should we forget how Christianity blessed the conquest of the Americas and the theft of the lands of their indigenous people. The God of the Old Testament was a vengeful God. Today, we are seeing holy jihad being waged by some Muslims. Even Buddhism, probably the most pacific religion, has fallen into abuse by the military leaders of Burma to carry out genocide against the Rohingya people who follow Islam. It is usually the state that hijacks the religion for war, as we see today in the Jewish state of Israel's oppression of Palestinians. It is disturbing to see what violence can be unleashed when you have God on your side. This is possible because when you think you have divine blessing, then anything can be allowed to fulfill God's will. This is the fanaticism we see today among some anti-abortion activists. The one religion I cannot imagine being misused to justify violence is Unitarian Universalism. That is because it is not based on a theology of an absolute being, but on 7 ethical principles. This is a theology without a theo. It puts humans first, affirming the inherent worth and dignity of every person. Our 6th principle explicitly affirms the goal of world community with peace, liberty, and justice for all. Unitarian Universalism is a human-centered religion that upholds the vision of the beloved community. It embodies the highest ethical values of all religions that reflect our noblest impulses. And now for our toast to peace.
Well, this is really going to be symbolic because one of the wine glasses broke earlier. So this has been a comedy of errors. But I'll let Cliff do the drinking and I'll do the talking. If there is to be peace in the world, there must be peace in the nations. If there is to be peace in the nations, there must be peace in the cities. If there is to be peace in the cities, there must be peace between neighbors. If there is to be peace between neighbors, there must be peace in the home. If there is to be peace in the home, there must be peace in the heart. Shalom, amen. And now some closing words from Cliff.
A closing word from the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King, Jr. Darkness cannot drive out darkness. Only light can do that. Hate cannot drive out hate. Only love can do that. And another word from Albert Einstein. I am not only a pacifist, but a militant pacifist. I'm willing to fight for peace. Nothing will end war unless the people themselves refuse to go to war. Peace cannot be kept by force. It can only be achieved by understanding. And now, Linda and I will extinguish the chalice.
The service has concluded, and now we extinguish the chalice. But before we gather here again, may each of us bring happiness into another's life. May we each be surprised by the gifts that surround us. May each of us be enlivened by constant curiosity. And may we remain together in spirit till the hour we meet again. You can have a drink of wine. Oh, okay. Why not? We got through this service, right?
Please exit quickly because there are cookies waiting for you outside. And I provided little